Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting straight through the noise surrounding the shifting 2026 ESG regulations. Instead of just dryly listing out compliance rules, we're going to distill these complex changes into a highly actionable, strategic roadmap for your business. We want to see exactly where the global market is headed, so let's just jump right in.
$1.6 trillion. Yeah, trillion with a T. According to our data, that is the annual revenue growth potential lost globally simply due to supply chain disruptions. To put that massive number into perspective, that's larger than the GDP of many countries. It really highlights just how much is at stake when your operations aren't resilient, transparent, and totally prepared for sudden market shifts.
So it all boils down to this crucial question. Are your sustainability claims a defensible asset, or are they a hidden liability just waiting to be exposed? When regulators, investors, or consumers start digging into your operations, what exactly are they going to find? Because the reality is, the answer to that question is about to become public record, whether we're ready for it or not. Section 1. The 2026 ESG Paradox. Navigating shifting global regulations. Right now, we're seeing a really fascinating paradox globally. On one hand, the overarching scope of regulations is actually narrowing. For example, the U.S. SEC climate disclosure rule stalled indefinitely at the federal level. Over in Europe, the EU Omnibus update actually removes 85 to 90% of previously in-scope companies from mandatory reporting under directives like the CSRD. You might hear that and think, awesome, less regulation? But hold on, because on the flip side, tightening enforcement. Where the rules do apply, regulators are demanding mandatory third-party data assurance, and they are strictly banning greenwashing and forced labor. So the regulatory net might be covering fewer companies overall, but the mesh is much, much tighter. And just to ensure we're all on the exact same page, ESG rests on three main pillars according to EcoVadis. It's not just about the environment. Yes, absolutely, you have environmental factors, like carbon emissions, water consumption, and biodiversity. But you also have social factors, meaning labor practices and human rights deeply embedded in your supply chain, and governance, which covers business ethics, anti-corruption policies, and board oversight. Regulators are relentlessly scrutinizing performance across all three of these dimensions.
And the clock is ticking incredibly fast across major global markets. Think about this rapid succession. By August 2026, California mandates Scope 1 and 2 emissions reporting. By December 2026, large companies must comply with the EU deforestation regulation, with small companies following right behind in June 2027. And by December 2027, the EU's total ban on products made with forced labor becomes fully applicable. There's literally no time left to treat this as some vague future problem.
Section 2. The end of vague claims. The severe risks of supply chain blind spots.
The era of greenwashing is officially over. Self-reporting without verifiable concrete action is now actively triggering lawsuits and intense public scrutiny. We have very clear legal precedents now. Take the LSG lawsuit against Volkswagen in Germany regarding human rights due diligence, or the massive forced labor class action against Mondelez regarding their cocoa supply chains. Vague claims printed on a nice package or a corporate website are directly leading to tangible reputational damage and legal action today.
To put the ultimate financial stakes into perspective, think about this number. $65 billion. That is the staggering amount BP faced in fines and settlements after a single catastrophic ESG failure, the Deepwater Horizon spill. It instantly wiped out investor confidence that took decades to build. The financial penalties for getting this wrong are quite literally market-moving. And investors are hyper-aware of this. According to the PwC Global Investor ESG survey, 49% of investors would actively divest from companies lacking sufficient action on ESG issues. Think about the gravity of that for a second. Nearly half of your investors will literally walk away if your ESG performance is weak or unverified. It's no longer just an operational issue. It is a full-blown existential financial one. Section 3. The data quality bottleneck. The danger of trapped data.
As Michael Sestak points out, we have to contrast the old ways of doing things with the new. The old way? Spreadsheets. We all know the pain of version control, right? When your data is trapped in silos and tracked manually, you're pretty much guaranteeing high error rates and unverified claims. Contrast that with smart solutions. We're talking about purpose-built, consolidated platforms that offer automated tracking, the agility to adapt to shifting frameworks, and, most importantly, clear, indisputable audit trails. Tracking all of this is virtually impossible to do manually, especially when you're dealing with Scope 3 emissions. Now, these are the indirect greenhouse gas emissions across your entire value chain, and they typically account for 70 to 90% of a company's total emissions footprint. You simply cannot manage 90% of your footprint in Excel and expect a strict regulator or an auditor to take it seriously.
Section 4. Digitalizing sustainability reporting, turning data into an asset.
Just like extreme precision is required in a laboratory setting, digitalizing your supply chain data ensures absolute accuracy. It transforms all that complex, fragmented information into clear, verifiable insights that you can confidently hand over to an auditor without a second thought.
50%. Precious Shipping, a massive global enterprise, achieved a 50% reduction in their overall reporting time just by utilizing Coreca's cloud software. Not only did they get much more accurate, framework-compliant data, but they literally got half of their team's time back, time they can now use to focus on strategic, value-add initiatives instead of relentless data entry.
So what does a proper digital platform actually give you? Well, it fundamentally shifts the burden of compliance into a fully automated, seamless process. You get comprehensive data capture across all your global operations. You gain framework agility, so you can easily support evolving standards like GRI, SASB, and ISSB. It automatically creates those indisputable audit trails for independent third-party verification. And it entirely automates your carbon accounting and reduction tracking, pulling human error right out of the equation.
Section 5. The Chemical Shift. Strategic Transformation in India.
The scale of opportunity we're talking about here is breathtaking. The Indian chemical industry, for instance, is projected to expand from $220 billion in 2024 to a staggering $2 trillion by 2047. But here's the catch. To capture that unprecedented growth, they absolutely have to navigate the global shift towards sustainability and green manufacturing.
The entire sector is strategically shifting toward bio-based feedstocks and green chemistry. This is exactly how a massive industry scales globally today. By moving away from purely crude-based inputs to bio-based and circular materials, they can grow exponentially without running afoul of strict new global regulations or facing crippling carbon tariffs. To capture that huge growth, PwC outlines several key strategic imperatives. The industry must actively develop platform molecule strategies and lean into green chemistry. They need to implement AI and digital tools for serious process optimization. They have to transition to circular economy models and start valorizing their waste. And crucially, they must align with global ESG frameworks to actually leverage green capital. It proves undeniably that massive innovation and strict compliance go hand in hand.
Section 6. Compliance to Competitive Advantage. Unlocking Strategic Premium.
Because at the end of the day, verified ESG data isn't just some regulatory shield. It is an active, powerful driver of business value. A robust, digitally verified ESG profile unlocks green bonds and ESG mutual funds, giving you incredible capital access. It radically enhances your brand image, allowing you to command premium pricing from conscious consumers. It fosters top-tier talent by attracting and retaining highly engaged employees. And it builds massive risk resilience, shielding your operations against the exact supply chain disruptions and trade-linked tariffs we talked about at the very beginning of this explainer.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. The landscape is shifting quickly, and the difference between a defensible asset and a hidden liability really comes down to your data and your tools. When 2026 regulations come knocking on your door, are you going to be handing them a manual spreadsheet full of unverified claims, or will you hand over an auditable, verifiable competitive advantage? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and consider carefully how your organization is going to answer that call.